What's going on, everybody? Coming to you today from the Vitamin D Studios here in beautiful, sunny, non-mountainous Florida, as usual. But anyways, if you can't tell from the description to this video, I'm going to be going over the pack that I carried while I was on the Appalachian Trail for over 6 months, and it's a Zpacks Arc Haul backpack. Now I'm going to do kind of this video in two parts, and the first part I'm actually just going to go over the bag itself, talk about the features of the bag, as well as the things that I had added to the bag. And then in the second part, I'll actually go over how I loaded this bag. I'm not going to go over all the contents of this bag. I've already done that. I'll put a link to that video in the description, but I'll just show you sort of how I loaded it every day. You'll know what I'm talking about as we get further into this. But anyways, spoiler alert, I really liked this bag. If I didn't, I would have replaced it. But anyways, it's a really good bag. It's the Zpacks Arc Haul. As far as I know, it only comes in one size, at least right now, which is 62 liters. And that 62 liters is comprised of, when they calculate that volume, the mesh pouch on the outside, the two side pouches, as well as actual main body. And that's broken up into 8 liters for the mesh outer pouch, 2.5 liters each for the side pouches, and then 49 liters is the main compartment to this bag. Now, if you like a bag that is not simple and that has 150 freaking compartments so you can keep your lipstick here and your mascara there, this is not at all the bag for you. This bag is very simple. It's one chamber the whole way through, and then the pockets I just told you about, which I actually really came to appreciate. And I was able to organize all my stuff in separate bags within the bag. I didn't need my bag to have all these extra pockets and zippers, and that just adds weight to the bag anyway. So I really appreciated the simplicity of this bag. So we'll get right into the features. All right, so it's, like I told you, 62 liters overall. That includes all of the compartments. We'll start with the mesh outer pouch. It's 8 liters. I really liked this. This is a very generous size for an outer sort of pouch to a bag compared to a lot of what you see out there. And it's been quite durable. Now you'll see like in areas like here and like a little spot there, yeah, there's little holes in it. But this thing has a ton of wear and tear on it, more so than most people are going to put on this bag, unless you're through hiking. If you're through hiking, you're probably going to do that. But you see, none of that is like a deal breaker, a showstopper or anything. It's just wear and tear on the bag. And to be honest, a lot of times I'd just be jamming stuff into this pocket, not paying that much attention. And if I had anything that was even relatively going to be sharp, it would always go on the very outside, because I'd rather it put a hole in the mesh pouch than in the bag itself. So anyways, you know, that's just a couple little wear and tear items. I can't blame Zpacks for that, because the amount of wear and tear that's actually on this bag, you know, that stuff there is just minimal, and it in no way, shape, or form, you know, changes the functionality of the outside pocket. I really did like that it is so generously sized, and as you can tell, I used it. I put a lot of stuff in this outer pocket. The only thing you'll see missing here that I carried is my Crocs, and all I did was I had those on a carabiner, and you know, I hooked the heel straps to the carabiner, and then on this kind of this little buckle here, I ran that through the carabiner, clipped it, hung the Crocs off. I don't have them here. I don't even know where they're at. And there's a good possibility that I'll never have Crocs strapped to this bag or another bag. Yeah, it's personal preference. Anyways, you go back to my last video. Like I said, I'll put a link in the description. You'll get a better idea of my feeling towards that. But anyways, I really did enjoy the big pouch on the outside. Now, I did add this strap. It's like a bungee kind of strap. It's very minimal as far as weight's concerned. To me personally, it didn't really get in the way of me adding things into this back pouch. And as you can see, and I've told you, I used this back pouch a lot. So I really enjoyed this, mainly for hanging wet clothing and stuff like that off the back of my pack if it needed to dry. Now there is like these side cords that you could do it as well. This just offered a lot more space for me to do that. So that is additional. I did add that. I want to say it was only $10 extra. And Zpacks, because I ordered that at the time that I bought the bag, they actually installed that for me and it came already put together, which was great. And it's something you can add yourself in the future. If you don't get it when you buy the bag, you can always just add that. It'd be really simple to put together. But then the other feature to the front of the bag, it did come with these two straps on the bottom, and I always kept my Thermarest Z seat right there on those straps. Some people would keep their tent there, some people didn't use them at all, but it does come with these. I really liked it. It was really nice. You can remove them if you don't use them or shorten them up if they're too long. But it does come with that, and I really liked it because that's where my Thermarest Z seat that I used a lot stayed, and it was just easy to get to at all times. So, the side of this bag, like I said, there is these cords that you can pull down to kind of cinch all the load into one spot, you know, do it consistently with each side so that you can keep your load sort of tightened together and stuff's not like sloshing around in your bag or anything. So it does come with that cord there. Really nice big, I used them as water bottle pouches. I was able to get to my bottles while I was hiking, which was awesome. I really liked it. They made them huge, and I'll kind of show you how I utilize them when I go through how I packed my pack. But I really liked this. My buddy Chips, when he went to start the trail, this I'm getting off track, it's kind of a funny story. He had an Osprey pack, and they make great packs too. Look into them. They're just not as lightweight. But if you're carrying a heavier load, that may be something you're interested in. But they have kind of what I thought at first was a cool feature to where you could kind of load your water bottles in from the side, sort of at an angle like this. And in the parking lot at Springer Mountain, before he went and summited Springer Mountain, he had leaned over with his pack on, just put his pack on, leaned over and had one of those water bottles installed like that, and it immediately fell out and broke his flip-top cap. So he didn't even get started on the trail and he had a problem. But hey, if you know that cat, you also know that he probably was not able to blow the legal limit the morning he started his hike. But great dude, really like the guy. But that's just a funny story, you know, based on the side pouches. Osprey does them a little different. Now with the Osprey ones, as far as I know, you can also load them from the top, even though they do have that function to where it's easier to load them from the side. But I personally never had problems with being able to access my water while I was hiking, which was very key, and that's from both sides. So the next feature of this bag I want to talk about, and it's sort of its namesake, is the Arc. And that's the frame to the bag. This is absolutely one of the best things about this bag. I mean, there's a lot of great things about this bag, but this is just the actual, like, you know, this is the game changer. There's a lot of lightweight bags out there, but this was amazing. Having the Arc, now this is fully adjustable. You can arc it how much or little as you want. It's extremely adjustable. I usually kept about a hand's worth of space on either side of it in the summertime. Let's get real. Like, yeah, some people say, oh, it creates a lot more airflow, which it does. It does create some airflow. But in the summertime, you're walking through Virginia or the mid-Atlantic states, it doesn't matter if you're not wearing a pack at all. Your back's going to sweat like the dickens and all of that. But the best thing I found about it, other than being really comfortable, is it didn't allow the pack itself to rub on your back. So when you're sweating, generally you're sweating salt, which is abrasive. And if this is rubbing on your back when you've got sweat and then salt, it's like having sandpaper rub against your back. Even if it's the most minute little, you know, rub, it becomes a problem. In fact, that one chick, I forget her name, real good looking chick, on the PCT, she switched to this bag from Alabama. Dixie, how could I forget? Dixie. if you haven't seen her channel, what are you doing watching this channel? I mean, there's some good looking content over there. But anyways, I'm getting sidetracked. Yeah, check her stuff out. She's got a lot of good info. But anyway, she switched from a Hyperlight mountain gear pack to this pack during her through hike of the PCT. And the reason was she was getting sort of rub marks on her back. And I would imagine it's from sweating, you know, and having the salt in your sweat. And then that just turns into like sandpaper. So this at least offers some distance, you know, between the pack material itself and your back, even though you're going to sweat a lot in the summertime anyways. So that's an awesome feature. Now this pack comes in 3 different torso heights, which is really cool. So sizing is not an excuse for why this wouldn't work for you. There's like a small, regular, and long, I believe. This is the regular, which fits the vast majority of people. And if you're like have a really short torso, they even offer like a kid's size, I believe. Maybe that's only in like the Arc Blast, but I did run into somebody on the trail that used a kid size. It was a female that was small, but it worked for her. But anyways, it's very adjustable. Your shoulder straps can move up and down, you know, so you can get everything dialed in perfectly, you know, based on your torso height. It's really good. It does come with a sternum strap, as pretty much all packs do anymore, that will strap across your sternum. I'll show that to you. And it's very adjustable as well from side to side. It just, you know, snaps there. That's definitely something that you need to look for in a pack. And then, of course, the actual size of your shoulder straps. Highly adjustable, no problems at all. Even the shoulder straps can kind of come up and down. You can really dial this pack in, which is great. The next thing I want to talk about, I absolutely loved about this pack, and that is the hip belt. It was incredibly comfortable and incredibly convenient that it's interchangeable on this bag. I did have to change that hip belt out at one point. I had lost enough weight that all of the weight was riding on my shoulders, and that was just not a good situation at all. So I did contact Zpacks and order a new hip belt, which was very easy in a hotel room. I installed it, swapped my old one out, and maybe took 3 minutes to do it. It was very simple to do, wasn't nothing to it. I just, you know, swapped my hip belt pouches from my old belt over to this one, sent my old belt home, and I was back in business, had no more problems. Feeling like all the weight was on my shoulders. So that's really something to consider if you're doing a long distance hike, is whether or not the hip belt is interchangeable. And then the way the buckles work is actually really nice. There's a top and bottom strap that you can adjust independently of each other. So however you want it to ride on your hips, you can have it a little tighter across the top, across the bottom, whatever's most comfortable for you. Which just kept the pack really stable. Now, Zpacks says that this bag will carry up to 40 pounds. I'm here to tell you, I don't recommend ever carrying 40 pounds on a through hike, but definitely don't do it in a lightweight bag. You're going to need a heavier backpack with a much more beefy frame if you're going to do something like carry 40 pounds. Again, highly recommend that you dial in your gear and you never are in a situation to be carrying 40 pounds. But anyways, I found this bag most of the time I was out of town, probably, depending on the length of the hike that I was doing, between 20 and 25 pounds. There were times right out of town, of course, I was actually carrying upwards of 30 pounds, which was not comfortable, but I got it done. And the reason I was carrying 30 pounds, because generally I was carrying a big dinner for that night to cook over the campfire, a bottle of whiskey or a bottle of wine, or whatever it was that I could get my paws on in that particular town. So there was extra weight involved when I left town. And, you know, I had this thing completely, yeah, it does have a lot of extra space, and I'll show you that. I had this thing completely full several times leaving town. But as you can see, this thing rolls up. And it's actually just the one compartment, like I was saying, is situated just like a dry bag. So it's very simple. You just Velcro this together. You don't even really have to Velcro it together. Just as long as you put it together and roll it down, it's going to function really well as a dry bag. It's the exact same setup as all your bag, your actual dry bags. But you can see there's a lot more capacity than what I have in here. But there were times to where I essentially had it rolled down like that and just clipped it here. And yeah, it's hard to show you right now, but I had it just slapped full leaving town. But generally, the very first night I dropped 5 pounds out of the pack, but I had a good night out of town, so that was totally worth it. So I really did like that feature of the pack. Now this pack is not, they don't say it's waterproof. I had a lot of redundancy built into how I carried all of my gear, so I never had to really test that theory. However, it is very water resistant. I never experienced a situation to where I felt like the water had actually like soaked into the material itself, because it is very hydrophobic. However, if you're in a big rain all day, chances are, yeah, you can probably get some water in here somehow. Nothing's truly waterproof. You all know how that goes already, I'm sure. But anyways, I always carried the pack liner inside the bag, and then the pack cover on the outside of the bag, both of which are Cuban fiber, so it offered a little bit more waterproofness. And the main reason I carried the rain cover, even though this is highly water resistant, is because I didn't always want to get everything in my outer pouch wet. Sometimes I had things that I wanted to keep relatively dry, so it was nice to have the rain cover. And between the rain cover being on here and the pack liner being inside of it, I never had any problems whatsoever with water in my bag or water on my gear. And as you'll see, all of my gear is in Cuban fiber dry bags as well. So another thing, sorry about that. Another thing that's really cool is just the build quality of this bag is really nice. It's like fully seam sealed on the inside. All of the stitching on this thing is just spot on. You can tell somebody took their time, was proud of what they're doing, and made this bag. Most likely it was just one person from start to finish. But you actually have more of almost like a waxy feel on the inside of the bag versus what you get on the outside, which is more of like a polyester feel than anything. I guess is the closest thing I can think of to this Cuban Dyneema, whatever the heck it is. But it's got kind of a polyester feel on the grid stop, but you can feel like a coating, and this probably contributes to the waterproofness of this bag. Almost a waxy coating on the inside, and then you can just see they obviously took a lot of time to seal this thing up and do their best to keep water out of it. So I really liked this bag in general. I never felt like it had any kind of major shortcomings, but as I do this review, I'll try to think of stuff that maybe I didn't like so much about it. But one other thing I want to talk about as far as the bag itself before we get into actually how I loaded this bag is some optional features. I already told you that the shock cord on the outside of the bag was optional. All of the other features that I added that are optional are on the back side of the bag, and we'll start with the hip belt pouches. I added one to each side. They're really big. They're not extremely easy to open and close on the hoof, so one of them I kept closed pretty much all the time. The other one that I had my phone in so that I could kind of quick deploy it if I needed to take pictures or whatever, stayed about halfway open, which stressed everybody out around me for whatever reason. They were always pointing it out like, oh, your pocket's open, you're going to lose your phone, and never once did that phone fall out of that pocket. I did leave my phone at place. That's a whole different video. I'm still not happy about that, but that was on me. Yeah, maybe I'll talk about that in the future. But it never fell out of that pocket when I just kept it like a quarter of the way closed. And they're massive pockets, and I don't think you can ever have them too, well, yeah, you can have them too big, but not, as long as they're reasonable, make them as big as possible. The ones I bought are Cuban fiber, which is like the same exact material. I'm sorry, they call it I don't even know. They got like I've told you in a video before, I think that it came down to somebody owned the name Cuban fiber, and now they call it like a Dyneema hybrid, I believe is what they call it now. It's the same thing. But that's what these are made out of. You can get them in this gridstop material. I have no idea why I didn't. I don't think it really makes that much of a difference in weight, and it probably does offer a little bit more durability if you get the gridstop material. And I only ever had one problem with one of these Cuban fiber pouches, and that didn't have anything to do with the Cuban fiber itself, or I'm sorry, the Dyneema hybrid. It had to do with the strap that it attached to. If I can find a picture of it, I'll show you. But that's a high wear and tear item in that area, so it is what it is, and I only had it happen to one side. But I also opted, for whatever reason, to get both of my shoulder strap or pouches in the Dyneema hybrid Cuban fiber or whatever. Like I said, I don't know why I did that. I think I had ordered one, and then I just wanted to keep it consistent, so that's why everything is that way. But you can get them in the Dyneema rip stop, the grid pattern, and like I said, I don't think the weight really amounts to anything that's worth talking about, or the weight difference anyways. And even so, the weight in general doesn't amount to much. They're super light, and I'll go through the stuff that I kept in them, but that's the other options that I had on the outside for carrying stuff. And then I also have, you may notice, these additional pads on the shoulder straps. And the reason for that was because when my hip belt got too big for me and I was carrying all the weight on my shoulders, I thought that I just had too much weight in my pack and that there was a problem with my pack or whatever it was. So when I ordered the hip belt, I ordered these shoulder straps as like additional padding. And it turns out the hip belt was 100% the problem. And these are completely unnecessary. However, I had bought them. They're extremely lightweight. I left them on here. They are pretty comfortable. Not something that you necessarily need to buy. They do also offer, as an addition, a lumbar pad, like an additional lumbar pad. Some people like that. Somebody had told me before I bought my bag that had the bag that I was talking to, they had told me that it kind of made the bag feel like it rode a little bit weird. So I figured I would just opt out of that option. And if I felt like I needed it, I could add it. And I never personally felt like I needed it. But for some people, depending on the shape of your back and the arch of your back and where the bag rests on you, it may be something that's really beneficial. So keep that in mind. But anyways, sorry about that. Again, look, about a year ago when I started this channel, I said that I was going to kind of give back a little bit and do some gear overviews and gear reviews. But I never agreed to let it cut into my beer drinking time. So I'm kind of simultaneously doing both. It is what it is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get myself some more beer because it's starting to cut into my beer drinking time. And when I get back, I'll go over all the outside, like what I have, how I have stuff loaded on the outside. This shouldn't take very long at all. And then I'll empty the bag and I'll show you how I loaded it. So you know the drill, hang tight. Alright folks, I made it back, and as promised I'm going to show you how I had everything loaded on the outside of the pack, and then I'll show you how I had everything loaded on the inside of the pack. So we'll get started with the outside pocket. My tent is the first thing that's in there, and I know it's kind of a big item to be in there, and that's part of why I appreciated this pouch so much. For being the size that it was, is if you don't already have a way to carry your tent on the exterior of your pack, I would recommend finding a way. And there's a couple reasons for that. The biggest reason is you always want it to be able to be the last thing that you pack. So if you have to get up and it's raining, you can get your bag completely packed in your tent. And I always did that. The way I had it packed, I was always able to have my pack completely packed. Before I got out of my tent, I could set it outside of my tent and then break down my tent. And the last thing was the tent itself that went down into the mesh pouch. Now, I know you're probably thinking, oh, well, you can just keep it at the top of your pack. And yeah, that's reasonable. but if you got up and it's raining and it's the last thing that you packed because it's raining and you were able to get everything all situated and packed up while you're in your tent, you're gonna have water on this tent. Now this is the Zpacks, it's the Cuban fiber or the Dyneema hybrid or whatever, duplex tent. So it's really hydrophobic. It didn't absorb water, but water would get sort of trapped in it, and you know, it could make its way out. This is not in a dry bag. It ships with like more of a stuff sack than a dry bag. Either way, I just would rather have my tent on the outside of my pack for that reason, because you always want to protect everything that's inside of your pack from any kind of water whatsoever. And then there were simply times where I didn't have space for it. If I was leaving town with a lot of food and a lot of whiskey and, you know, extra food or whatever it was, then I just didn't have room for my tent in my pack. So it was great that it fit on the outside. So enough about that. If you don't already have a way to keep your tent on the outside of your pack, I highly recommend figuring that out. And just, it can be the last thing that you break down when you're done. And then other stuff you guys already know about. This is just my shit kit. It's toilet paper, you know, my trowel, all of those necessities. Extra bottle. You carry almost a bottle of wine or almost a bottle of whiskey in this thing. It's just good to have an extra bottle. This was an extra water bladder to carry extra water. This is my pack cover. Obviously you want to keep that on the outside of the pack. If it starts to rain, you want to be able to just grab it, get it put on. One thing I'll say about the pack cover though is I would go ahead, and Zpacks sells these really small carabiners, or you can probably, they don't have to be Zpacks, but anybody or any way you can find a better way to attach it. It's going to work better than these little plastic hooks that they come with that are a real pain. But Zpacks actually sells like really small carabiners that I have a lot of, and that's what a lot of the stuff's hung off my bag with, and they hardly weigh anything. So I have 4 of those for the 4 places to hook my pack cover. It stayed in place really well. I never had any problems with wind blowing it off or anything like that. So that is the pack cover. Spoon, mosquito net, bandana. That does it for the outside pouch. Now, I also, as I talked about before, kept the Z-seat, the Thermarest Z-seat on the outside of the pack. That way, if I sat down at lunch or if I just wanted to take a break or whatever and the rocker root that I was wanting to sit on was wet, you could deploy this pretty easily. Worked really well. All right, so the pack would be like this. So this would be my right-hand side. I always kept a water bottle. This is the side I always drank from. For whatever reason, on my right-hand side was easier to grab my water bottle. So I always kept a 1 liter smart water bottle there. And then my water filtration system, which needs to be on the outside of your pack because you need to be able to get to it easily. And I simply kept it all contained like this. Now there's actually the smart water bottle scoop. And then inside of that, I have an Evernew 2 liter water bladder. And inside of that, I have my Sawyer Squeeze filter, complete with the tornado tube on top of it. So it all just packed down pretty much to smaller than the size of a second smart water bottle, which you can fit. You can fit 2 smart water bottles in each of these pouches, but that's how I kept my water filtration system. All right, on the other side, another water bottle. Always keep at least 2 liter, 1 liter bottles for clean water at all times. So I kept that over there. And then my piss bottle. I wanted to keep that on the outside of my tent for obvious reasons. This is for late night, gotta piss. You know what I'm talking about. So, the only other 2 things, my AT hang tag. Definitely register your hike with the Appalachian Trail Conservancy. They'll appreciate it. It's free. They send you a hang tag. It's hung with a Zpacks miniature carabiner, which hardly weighs anything. And I could reuse that for something if I really needed a functional use for it. And then my Spot device, Spot Gen 3 device. It's hung with a Zpacks carabiner as well. All right, so in my left shoulder pouch, I always kept like a snack on the inside. You can keep like your medicine. Every one of you knows what I mean. Don't even act like you don't know what I mean, but hey, yeah. It'll make you appreciate that next view that much more. Quick deployment. Then my little pocket knife, kept it right there. Really good and handy. Always want to keep your body glide. Very handy. Very easy to get to for obvious reasons. And then the stick pick that I never used. On the other side, and these pouches are great because they have the main compartment on the inside, and then they also have a mesh outer pouch, which is pretty awesome. So the other side, it's the same exact pouch. I never really kept anything on the outside of this one for whatever reason. On the inside, I kept my GoPro. It's the GoPro Hero 5, I think it is, inside of a sock, just to keep the lens and screen from getting scratched up. And then on the right hand side, this is the side I was telling you about. Everybody was always wound up because they thought my phone was going to fall out. This is how I kept my phone. It's in a darn tough sock. I've been over the reasons why, but I've got my phone in there. Fits really good in a darn tough sock, by the way. And then I always kept, just in case it was raining or whatever, I had a Ziploc bag, and then also a lav mic so that I could try to keep audio decent on any kind of videos that I was making. And I know my audio is not perfect. I wish it was better, but here at the Vitamin D Studios, we're dealing with pretty much hardwood floors everywhere. So it's not going to be great, but I'm trying to get it better. Anyways, that was it for that hip belt pouch. On the other side, I kept a bag of incidentals, which included my headlamp, which you always want to have easy access to without rifling through your pack. And then I just had like an extra smart water bottle cap. I had some nail clippers, some earplugs for nighttime. Those could go in pretty much any bag. And then oftentimes I would keep like a few ibuprofen just in case I needed them in this bag that was easy to get to. And then another thing I forgot to mention in my overall pack rundown that I recently did was in this same pouch, I kept a Zpacks wallet, just a little Cuban fiber wallet. This is like the big size. I wanted something that could fit my phone while I was in town, and it worked out really well. So this is where I kept like any kind of cash, cards, you know, receipts, anything, and it's pretty darn waterproof. And on a side note, I actually just recently found this thing and also found a bunch of lottery tickets. So if you never see another video out of me again, you know what happened. I got Maine lottery here. This one is West Virginia lottery. I've got Virginia lottery. Tennessee lottery, Florida. Hey, I don't know. Maybe I'm a wealthy man and don't know about it, but I need to check those. Anyways, that's pretty much everything that I kept on the outside and in the order. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and empty out the inside of the pack, and then I'm going to show you how I actually loaded everything from the inside. So hang tight and I'll get right back with you. Alright, so as promised, everything's out of my bag now. I'm going to go ahead and show you how I loaded my bag as far as everything on the inside goes. Alright, I always put my sleeping bag and my sleeping pad at the very bottom. There's enough room in this bag for them to go side by side at the bottom. So I always stuck my sleeping bag in, and then I took the sleeping mattress and stuffed it right next to that, and it kind of gives the bottom of the bag a little bit more of kind of a shape. And you always want to keep like your heavier stuff closest to the lower part of your back, and this pack rides pretty low, so I didn't put my heaviest stuff on the very bottom. But my next thing was always my clothes bag, which doubled as my pillow. It's the one that you turn inside out. But anyways, Clothes are pretty heavy. I try to keep them as light as possible, but you know, they're not extremely light. So the next thing I always stuck in was my clothing bag. And then the heaviest bag I always had, unless I was like going into town that day, was my food bag. And as you can see, that's why my pack hardly looks like there's anything in it when it's full, as there's really nothing in this food bag. It was usually completely full, but I went ahead and stuck it in, you know, to keep it pretty close to the bottom and always closer to my back. Next, and then my rain jacket. If you saw my last video, you know that I wouldn't carry that thing again. I've since bought a Frog Togs rain top. So this is what I'm going to use in the future. Highly recommend it. It's very lightweight. But because it kind of helps fill the void, and that food bag never had like a really consistent size. And by the way, all of my stuff sacks are the medium plus size. And once you get them full and kind of rolled down and closed, they work out really good going horizontally inside this bag, one on top of the other. But because that Zpacks Bear Bag Kit was kind of an inconsistent size, I always stuffed my rain jacket in kind of to fill all the void around it. And the reason my rain jacket is okay to be on the inside of my bag is because I never used it in rain. I only ever used it as like a windbreaker or for cold weather, or sometimes sleeping when it was really cold. That was very beneficial to have, but I never needed to get to it while it was raining. I did need to get to my pack's rain cover when it's raining. That's why it was on the outside of my pack. So anyways, that went in, and then the last bag was my bag that had electronics and, you know, another bandana and, you know, all the essentials like a hammock and a Chromecast and all that good stuff. That always went in at the top, and this bag kind of adjusted in size a little bit, you know, as things went, but that always went in at the very top. And then I also had, like, in there with my electronics, I had like my battery charger and stuff. So if I needed to get at that, like while I was having lunch or anything like that, it was at the very top of my bag, so it was super easy to get to. So anyways, it's that simple. That's how I packed my bag. Just keep in mind that everybody's different. You're going to want your pack to ride however you're most comfortable with it riding. I recommend, like I said, keeping all of your weight, or most of the actual bulk of your weight, closest to like the lower part of your back. That way you don't feel top heavy or anything like that as you're hiking. I just think that it's more comfortable to do it that way. But anyways, once I got it all put in, I just closed up the Zpacks pack liner, which operates as basically a gigantic dry bag. So I'd roll that down, close it off, and then I could close off the bag itself. And then generally in the tent, like I already told you, I had already had everything else packed up. And the last thing to do was to set this thing, lean it up against a tree or something, then break down my tent and put the tent in there. And that saved me during rainy mornings more than once. So like I said, it's very nice to have your tent to ride on the outside of the pack. But anyways, again, I really liked this pack. I never felt like I wanted a different pack. There was quite a few people out there on the Appalachian Trail this summer that had this pack that really liked it. I didn't hear any kind of complaints. Not saying they're not out there, I just didn't personally experience any of them. And to be honest, when I go back and do phase 2 of my hike, I'm going to bring this exact bag. I don't even need to replace it. It's still in good shape. And you know, going with this grid stop in the Arc Haul over the Arc Blast was definitely a good call, because there are many a times on the trail that you are going to kind of slide your bag against abrasive rocks and things like that. You don't want it beating up your bag. And there's, like, with the exception of those few little holes in the mesh pocket on the outside, no real visible signs of wear and tear, even with all of the time and hiking that's on this bag. So I really enjoyed it. Like, even the bottom, like, there was a lot of times I had to sit down and slide across rocks, and even on the bottom, I never really experienced any kind of real wear and tear, and there's a lot of time on this bag, so that's impressive to me. Now, there is one thing that I guess I should throw one thing I didn't necessarily like so much about this bag in, and it's kind of all I could think of, is it when you set it down, it always wants to fall forward. I know that sounds ridiculous. That's what I mean. You'd always have to lean it against a tree. You're out in the woods, you're tired, you've been hiking, you just want to set your bag down and have it stay. And naturally, it's always going to fall this way and roll down a hill, and all your, you know, stuff's going to just get all, yeah, you don't want that. But that's all I can really come up with for things I didn't like about it. But that's most packs. Most packs are going to, I know the Ospreys are like that too, because they have a very similar system as far as having the arc in the back and they fall forward. But they didn't design this pack to stand up on its own. They designed it to be a comfortable pack while backpacking, and I feel like they did a good job. I like the fact that Zpacks is constantly, at least right now and last year or two, from what I've noticed, they're constantly upgrading their products. If they see something could be enhanced, or, you know, small changes can be made to increase longevity of the product, it seems like they're making those as you get them. And even just like the forethought, like obviously I told you that the workmanship on this bag is very good, but the forethought and things like right here, there's these two little clips that they were already sewn to the bag. Yeah, they really weigh nothing, so it doesn't add anything. But if you did want to add the like dual roll top or V strap or whatever, which you would really need to do if you were putting a bear bag on top of this bag. And honestly, I kind of wish that I would have done that for the AT for when I had to carry extra water. It would have been nice to put it here and strap it down securely rather than just this one strap, which is what I did, and more than once my water fell off one side to the other. But a dual strap would have been cool, but they went ahead and added provisions for that. So if you want to add it in the future, you don't have to send your bag in, you can just do it. It's that simple. So it's very cool. Just really liked the bag. So anyways, I guess that pretty much wraps this up. If you go to zpacks.com, I will put the link to this bag in the description. I highly recommend it. If you go there, if you put in the coupon code, put in vitamin D, all lowercase, one word, you will get an error message saying that that's not a real coupon code. I'm in no way, shape, or form affiliated with Zpacks. I just happen to really like this product. It worked for me. I'm going to continue to use it. I can't complain at all. So thanks everybody for watching. If you have any other gear you'd like for me to review, let me know, and I'll just kind of do it in the order that people want me to do it in. You know, I'm going to try to get through most of the important stuff in my bag. But anyways, again, thanks for watching, and if you have any questions, leave them in the comments as well. If you're not subscribed to this channel, consider subscribing. There's plenty more videos coming in the near future, especially if you're considering a through hike, in the near future or distant future. Either way, it's always good to do research. So for the 15th time, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.